Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would discuss with you guys once again max effort training. Something I talk about a lot, and I'm always surprised when I get a regular subscriber, and I'm talking regular people who comment every day, who comes in and argues, I don't see how a board press helps at all. I don't see the carryover by doing a 1 rep max with it. Okay, and when people say things like that, I think they're completely missing the point of our max effort lifts. Now, I want to make this clear. We are not doing max effort lifts to build muscle. Okay, I want to make that again very, very clear. And if a lift doesn't build muscle, or at least non-appreciable amounts, I'm not saying your max work doesn't contribute to your overall training volume, because it does, and it can attenuate upper threshold fibers being hit more effectively through the rest of the workout for the next exercises. Okay, I want to make that clear. As you'll see me oftentimes max on a bench of some type, a bench variation, then do a bunch of rep work on the closed grip bench. Okay, we have already fatigued the upper threshold fibers. We've hit them. We've hit them maximally with a 1 rep max lift. But that max lift itself is not producing very much hypertrophy. Now, if we talk about cutting 2 inches or an inch or 3 inches out of a range of motion of a lift on a max partial, does it really matter that we miss some of the muscle fibers? No, because our other full range of motion movements after are going to hit the rest of those fibers. And it may have fatigued some of the others, and it definitely will fatigue some of the others if you hit a 1 rep max or miss a max. Yes, you fatigued upper threshold fibers in all of the muscles involved. Okay? But why are we doing max effort work? People keep getting hung up in this idea of carryover. And I'm going to ask you a simple question. What are we talking about for carryover? In this case, we're learning how to max. We're learning how to grind through different grooves, different start points, different strength curves. So in the case of me, I have, technically, if you look at my chart, before we even go to bands or chains or lack thereof, I have 10 different basic exercises on my bench press chart. And then we have 5 different variations of each one regarding no bands or chains and 10 or 20% band or chain tension. Okay, that's 50 different bench presses. Yes, I have a half board, 1 board, 2 board on there. I also have the buffalo bar, which goes the other direction. It makes the range of motion longer. But let me ask people a question. Do you really think the variation matters that much? Why are we maxing? We're maxing out to continually get PRs. We've discussed the psychology of this before. There's a reason it works. It works very, very well for building confidence, because you're hitting PRs all the time. Even if people are like, but you're only hitting that one lift every 12 weeks or 16 weeks. Does that PR count? Well, of course it does. Of course it does, because we know based upon our different lifts where our classic lift is. If we know how many pounds difference we lift on each variation versus our classic lift, we know that those PRs represent a strength test that carries over to the main exercise. And yes, it does work that way. It is that simple. Right? That's a big part of what we do. We're testing strength, we're building confidence, and we see our weak points come out. In other words, we see where we are weak in the strength curve on all these different lifts. We see what weak muscles we have. This is one of the reasons we test a wide variety of exercises. Because here's the truth. This whole idea that, finding your groove, getting out of your groove, that doesn't matter. For example, on the box squat here, I use 3 different bars, right? In this case, you guys see me doing a 505. First time I ever use this bar. This pulls you in the opposite direction of the safety squat bar. So if I've learned to max with barbells that pull me in the groove 2 different directions, if I get out of my groove on a squat, I'm fine, because I've done well over 500-pound squats outside of my groove, both directions away from where the normal bar path is. Okay, when we're messing with the bench stuff, if we're hitting different heights because we're using a buffalo bar, then slightly different board variations, we're used to having to explode and start from different points. So if anything goes inconsistent with our arch, or we sink it too deep, or something happens, we're used to just exploding from different start points that are several inches apart. We're used to having to explode through to press against different band tensions, different chain tensions that change the strength curve and change the way we decelerate on the way up. All right, we're just getting stronger. When we're getting stronger at vastly different lifts all the time, and maxing and testing where we are on lifts that we have no groove on. And what happens? We get stronger and stronger at them because having your groove doesn't really matter. You only get out of your groove because you have weak links. Otherwise, how would you find your groove on a new lift? Like the same thing with that cambered bar. 505 box squat. First time I've ever used the bar, stopped there, left a little in the tank. I didn't have a groove on that. I don't know my groove. It has a completely different groove and center of gravity and pull than a normal barbell or any barbell I have. That you just push through, you just find it and push through. And you identify your weak links. Because if you identify your weak links on every different possible groove, then you don't have weak points. And you'll be just strong at everything. And that's the idea. It's not about, oh, I think this should carry, because it doesn't matter. These are not technical exercises, guys. I'm sorry, the squat, bench, and deadlift are not technical exercises. Usually your technique, once you learn how to perform the lift, basic technique can be learned very, very quickly. All bad technique from there is muscular weaknesses and weak points. So, well, I can't do a certain stance. Well, because you don't have the muscles to do that stance. You're underdeveloped and you're weak. Okay, guy says, well, I can squat 500 in an Olympic squat with a narrow stance, but when I go wide, I can't squat that same amount. Well, you should be able to squat more. You can squat 500 with an Olympic squat, then with a really wide stance power squat, you should be able to squat 530, 550. And if you can't even squat 500, it's because you're weak. You have massive muscular weaknesses. You have massive muscular weaknesses that need to be addressed. Because if you have muscle weaknesses, you are weak. We're only as strong as our weakest link. Just like, if I see a guy who can bench press 405, but he can only squat and deadlift 300, he's weak. Because what serious lifter, strongest lift is 405? Right, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. He has a strong upper body, but he is weak overall. And the same applies to all these lift variations. We're doing them to test our strength, to build confidence on hitting PR after PR after PR for self-programming. And we're using them to find our weak links. We're using them to learn how to grind, to learn how to strain, to learn how to lift maximum weight so that we can produce maximum force production in any environment. Okay, because when you have 50 different press variations, every one of them has a different groove. It has a different curve. You think about it from a sports perspective, when people bring this up, it's like, actually, technically, conjugate training is probably better for general sports than it is anything. Because when you're on a playing field, you're going to hit different angles, particularly contact sports. You're going to be put into odd angles, different strength curves. It's not going to be where you have a perfectly set up groove. You're going to be resistant to injury. And that's the big point of it also, and that's the one that people forget. This is the biggest part, the resistance to injury, because you're used to lifting maximum weight through 50 or 100 different exercises per year when you get really into a system like this. Do you understand what that does in terms of injury prevention? You're prepared for uncertain loading at vastly different angles all the time. You have prepared your body for that. You've built connective tissue, and you've shored up weak links continually. It's harder to break you. All right? This builds physical resilience and it builds psychological resilience. It has nothing to do with each individual lift giving an exact training response that carries over. And that's really nonsense that people think in those terms. We can test our weakest links by picking lifts that hit our weakest links hardest, and it'll really tell us where we're at. You can see how different our strength is using the different bars and angles and ranges of motion. Now that's valuable. But it's not about the exact training effect because you're pushing a max. That is a training effect. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.